My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 64 years old, semi-retired after decades of running a small but successful contracting company here in Wisconsin, and I've always believed that family is the one place where a man should feel safe, respected and needed, but all of that changed on the day I arrived at my lake property without warning and overheard a conversation that froze me to my core, a conversation that revealed more about my family's hearts than I ever wanted to know. I had been out of town visiting an old friend for 2 days, and on my way back I decided to take a detour and spend the evening at my lake house, a peaceful little place I built with my own hands 30 years ago, back when life felt simpler and my kids were still small enough to sit on my shoulders. I didn't tell anyone I was going because I honestly just wanted a quiet night with the fireplace, a hot cup of coffee, and the sound of the lake tapping gently against the shore. But as soon as I parked my truck, I noticed something strange. There were 3 cars in the driveway, none of which belonged to me. At first I thought maybe someone had broken in, or maybe my son, daughter, and their spouses had come for a weekend outing. But it didn't make sense because they always told me when they were using the place, and I always gave them permission with a smile. I walked up the wooden path toward the house and saw the lights were on. The sliding door slightly cracked open, and voices drifting out into the cool air. My kids' voices. My daughter-in-law's voice, even my sister-in-law's voice, all gathered around the living room like they were having some family meeting. And I felt a tiny warmth at first, thinking maybe they were planning a surprise for me. Maybe they'd missed me and wanted to welcome me home. But the moment I stepped closer and the words became clearer, that warmth died instantly. My daughter Emily said in a frustrated tone, "Dad doesn't even use this lake house anymore. It's just sitting here. We could rent it out or sell it and split the money." And then my son Michael chimed in, "We need to convince him he can't take care of it. If he won't sell, we'll have to push him." Mom would have agreed. And hearing them use their late mother's name like a business tool hit me like a punch in the chest. I stayed hidden outside the sliding door, frozen in place, my heart pounding harder than it had in years, as I listened to my own children discuss how to get rid of me from something I built long before they even learned to drive. My daughter-in-law, Haley, who barely visited me unless she needed something, laughed and said, "Honestly, he's getting old. He won't even notice if we start handling things. Let's tell him it's unsafe for him to stay here alone. He'll believe that." And then my sister-in-law added, "Your dad's too soft to say no. Just make him feel guilty. Say you're worried about his health. He'll fold." I stood there unable to move, unable to speak, unable to even process the fact that the very people I loved, raised, fed, educated, and supported for decades were plotting to take away the one place that still brought me peace. I felt like a stranger standing outside my own life, watching the people inside tear pieces of me apart with their words. As I leaned in closer, my daughter said something that cut deeper than everything else combined. "He's lived his life. Now it's our turn. He doesn't need space." "We do," and everyone murmured in agreement, not one person speaking up for me. It was the kind of moment you don't forget, the moment you finally understand how invisible you've become to the people you sacrificed everything for. I quietly stepped back from the door, walked slowly to the edge of the deck, and just stared at the lake for a long time, feeling the cold wind sting my eyes, until I finally found enough strength to walk inside. But instead of bursting in with anger, yelling, or demanding explanations, I opened the sliding door calmly, stepped inside, and watched everyone jump like they'd seen a ghost. The look on their faces told me everything: guilt, panic, fear, all mixed with the sudden realization that I had heard every single word. No one spoke at first. They just stared at me like kids caught stealing from a store, and my son finally muttered, "Dad?" "You're early," trying to fake a smile, but it cracked under the weight of the truth between us. I sat down slowly in my own armchair, the same one I used to rock both of them in when they were toddlers, and I said, "Go on. Don't stop now. You were discussing something important." And my daughter burst into tears while my son stuttered excuses about being concerned for my safety and wanting to help manage things, but I wasn't interested in their stories. I was interested in who they had become. I listened quietly, letting them twist their words into knots. Until my daughter-in-law blurted out, "It's not fair you have so much while we're struggling," and for the first time in my life, I felt something inside me harden, not anger, but clarity. I told them I wasn't mad, just disappointed. Not because they wanted support, but because they thought they were entitled to take from me without honesty, without respect, without even considering how their actions would break my heart. I stood up, took a deep breath, and said, "You may have forgotten who built this house, who fought for everything we have. But I haven't, and I won't let anyone steal my dignity, not even my own family." And the room fell silent. I pulled out my phone, called my lawyer, and put him on speaker, instructing him to file documents first thing in the morning, officially restricting access to the lake property. No one but me would be allowed to use it without written permission. My son's mouth fell open. My daughter begged me not to do it. My daughter-in-law stormed out saying I was overreacting. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing up for myself again. That night, after they all left, I sat by the fireplace thinking about how life can twist in ways you never expect, how children can grow into adults you don't recognize, how love can turn into entitlement, how generosity can be mistaken for weakness. But as the fire crackled and the lake shimmered in the moonlight, I also realized something else. This place, this little lake house, wasn't just wood and walls. It was a reminder of who I used to be, the man who worked hard, built something with purpose, and never quit. And I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. In the days that followed, my children tried calling, apologizing, begging, arguing, even guilt-tripping. But I needed space to heal, to understand, to forgive, but also to set boundaries they could no longer cross. Eventually I agreed to meet them, not as a broken father, but as a man who finally realized his worth. And I told them that if they wanted to be part of my life, it had to come from love, not greed. Whether they learn that lesson or not is up to them. But one thing is certain. The day I arrived at my lake property unexpectedly, I didn't just overhear a conversation, I overheard the truth. And though it left me frozen, it also woke me up. And I will never ignore that truth again.